Never stop reading Bible. Today, we're diving into a story of incredible victory, one really bad mistake, and the bloody legacy that it left behind. It's a powerful look at how even the biggest wins can, believe it or not, plant the seeds for a terrible tragedy. Let's get into it. It all kicks off with this number, 300. And you gotta understand, this isn't a massive army. It's a tiny band of soldiers, and they were about to go up against an entire invading nation.
So the big question is, how on earth is that even possible? This sets the stage for one of the most unbelievable military victories in history, and it was all led by a man named Gideon.
So let's set the scene. We're on the battlefield. Gideon actually starts out with a bigger army, but after a few really strange tests, he's left with just these 300 guys. And their enemy? Well, it's an army so huge it's described as being like a swarm of locusts covering the land.
See, Gideon's strategy wasn't about swords and shields. Nope, this was pure psychological warfare. Under the cover of total darkness, his 300 men spread out and surrounded this massive enemy camp. Then, all at once, they blew their trumpets, smashed clay jars to make this huge crashing sound, and lit up the night with hundreds of torches. And the result? Absolute chaos.
The enemy army wakes up to sound and light coming from every direction, and they think they're surrounded by a giant force. In all the confusion, they actually start attacking each other and then just run for their lives. So Gideon scores this incredible victory, basically without a fight, and just like that, he becomes a national hero.
And this is where the story takes a really dark turn. Because, winning on the battlefield is one thing, but how a leader handles the power that comes with that victory, well, that's something else entirely. After a victory like that, can you blame them? The people were just ecstatic. They looked at Gideon as their savior, and they offered him the ultimate prize, a crown. They wanted him and his sons after him to rule as their king. And right here, we see this fatal contradiction. Publicly, Gideon says no. He tells them, "I will not rule over you." But privately, he makes a request. He asks for the golden treasures they took from the war, and with all that gold, he makes something called an ephod. This one decision would end up being a trap for his entire nation. So what even is an ephod? Well, it's supposed to be a sacred garment, something worn by a high priest. But this one, made from the gold of war by a national hero, it became something totally different. It became an idol, a spiritual snare, not just for the people, but for Gideon's own family. For as long as Gideon was alive, there was peace in the land. But the moment he died, the dark influence of that golden idol really took over. The people just forgot why they had won in the first place, and they spiraled right back into corruption. And that set the stage for the story's really tragic final act. That dark chapter has a name: Abimelech. He's one of Gideon's many sons, but trust me, he is nothing like his heroic father. He is the violent, living consequence of Gideon's one big mistake. To really get the scale of the horror that's about to unfold, you have to know this. Gideon had 70 sons, a huge family, a potential dynasty, right? Out of those 70, only one would survive what their brother Abimelech did next. Just one. So Abimelech is just consumed by this lust for power. He goes out and hires a gang of mercenaries. Then he tracks down 69 of his own brothers and has them all murdered on a single stone. He seized the one thing his father had publicly refused, the title of king. Only the youngest brother, a guy named Jotham, managed to get away. Well, a reign that's built on blood is never going to be stable. After just 3 years, the very same people who helped make Abimelech king turned on him. And his response was just brutal. He crushed their rebellion, completely destroyed their city, and then, to really make a point, sowed the ground with salt. His entire kingship was defined by violence and betrayal. But tyrants like this, they rarely die peacefully in their sleep. Abimelech's bloody career was always headed for a violent, and as we're about to see, a deeply humiliating end. Okay, so we're at his final battle. Abimelech has the last of his enemies cornered inside a strong tower. He's walking up to the base of it, getting ready to set it on fire and burn everyone inside alive. He's just moments away from another brutal victory. But as he gets close to the tower, a woman on the wall above him drops a heavy millstone and it lands directly on his head, crushing his skull. He's dying, but his final act is all about pride. He can't stand the idea that people will say he was killed by a woman, so he orders his own armor-bearer to run him through with a sword. What a miserable end to a reign that started with him murdering his entire family.
And this leaves us with a really tough question. Gideon's story starts with this incredible moment of faith and genius strategy. But his one compromise, that golden ephod, it unleashed a legacy of corruption that led directly to his monstrous son, Abimelech. So it makes you ask, does a great victory somehow cancel out a flawed legacy? And where does a hero's responsibility truly end?
Thanks for joining us for this explainer. This has been a presentation from the Center Studio.